trading Kristaps Porzingis to the Washington Wizards. It is reportedly a deal that will center around Spencer Dinwiddie. Davis Bertans also included in that deal. Porzingis was brought to Dallas. They were thinking, boy, he could team up with Luka Doncic, and they would have a great European duo on that team. Porzingis just hasn't really gotten the footing that they thought he would have coming out of the New York Knicks organization. These are the details of the trade, with the Wizards getting Porzingis and a second-round pick and sending Dinwiddie and Bertans to Dallas. Bill, what's your take on this trade?
First blush, I really like it for Dallas. I like both of those players, and you want to surround Luka Doncic, who is and should be a top 5, top 10 player in the game, with guys that can contribute immediately. These are good players. And the second thought I have is, I don't understand, and I'm processing in real time, I just don't understand what the Wizards' play is here. Maybe they believe that Bradley Beal's moving on and they're in a rebuild mode, or maybe they believe this is how you convince Bradley Beal, who obviously is injured, not going to play the rest of the year, will be an unrestricted free agent in the summer, and it's an open question around the NBA. You get a lot of different guesses as to whether he's committed to the Wizards, a lot like Lillard, or he wants to be somewhere else. I don't see how going to him and saying we got Kristaps Porzingis is the answer to the question, what are we doing here? And the Wizards have done a nice job in contract or in roster construction in moving on from Westbrook. First blush, love it for Dallas. Don't understand it for the Wizards.
Yeah, I like it for Dallas too. You bring Bertans, a guy that can space the floor, especially play great in pick and roll with Luka Doncic. You heard about just internally, Luka Doncic and Porzingis wasn't seeing eye to eye. Let's be honest. I mean, for the last couple of years, there was a lot of things that Luka didn't like about Porzingis. So I think that the guys that you bring in Dinwiddie, another guy that can score. Especially you don't have to have the ball in Luka Doncic's hands as much. You got another guy that can create his own offense. So I like this better for the Dallas Mavericks than I do for the Washington Wizards.
We're out here in L.A. Avery is in Dallas. Avery, you're our Mavericks insider. What do you say?
You're right, Chris. I'm only a block away from the American Airlines Center, and this is not a surprise. I'm here right in the thick of things. I attend several Mavericks games a year. I went to Dirk Nowitzki jersey retirement ceremony, which was incredible. And I know people, when they traded for Porzingis, talked about he was going to be a poor man, Dirk Nowitzki. No, he's not. He's nowhere compared to Dirk Nowitzki. But I think Porzingis and Luka didn't really gel. They didn't have great chemistry consistently enough. Porzingis talked about wanting to go somewhere where he wanted to be the best player on the team, feel a little bit more appreciated. Porzingis never really could stay healthy. And your best ability is availability. He wasn't always available. There were times he had to take games off on back-to-back nights. This looked good, and philosophically, when the former GM, Donnie Nelson, made this trade along with owner Mark Cuban, it looked good when the trade was made, but Porzingis just really struggled to be that type of a threat consistently. I know Jason Kidd tried to make him play inside a little bit more and use his height inside, but it just didn't work, and I think this is probably the best that they could get for Porzingis. His market wasn't very high. So, again, with Dinwiddie and Bertans coming in, this was probably the best they could get. And I agree with my colleagues that this was a good trade for the Mavericks.
Bill, once upon a time, Porzingis was looked at as a steal and a future megastar in the NBA. How did that train go off the tracks?
Yeah, he was the last great hope for the New York Knicks, which we were talking about earlier. He was the solution. Injuries, I think, are the answer to the question. His body hasn't held up, and he clearly isn't the same player that he used to be. And I think there were certainly flashes when he was in New York that this was a guy, to your point, who was passed over a couple times in that draft, who should have been selected earlier. Now, there are people in the NBA, I don't think there are many left that I talk to, who still think in the right situation he can be the second best player in a really good team. I'm not one of those people. A lot of other folks aren't those people. Sounds like in Washington they've got a different perspective, and they think, despite the injury history, that he's a guy. And you guys have already referenced it. Despite the concerns out there that maybe his focus sometimes isn't in the right way to go about being a professional basketball player, that maybe there's enough upside that they can make it work. But I'll say this: I think it's a steep price. I mean, those are two really good basketball players going the other direction.
Rip.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, when you look at Porzingis, you heard that he was in a lot of trade talk, especially the last month or so. I think this gives him a new situation, a new team, new city, new environment for him. I just thought that the pressure was too much for him in Dallas. You know, the expectations of him was too high. I don't think he's a number 1 or number 2 guy, Bill. I think he's a 3rd or 4th option on your team. And when you bring him on this team to Washington, it does give them size. It does give him a perimeter shooter, another guy that when Bradley Beals drives and kicks, that he's confident enough that he can knock down the shot. But he's not a number 1 or number 2 guy. We got to get that out of our head. He's not a Dirk Nowitzki. He's not an all-star. He's a guy that can help your ball club, and if you understand who he is, he can help your team.
Sticking with a little Mavericks theme here, Goran Dragic, who was traded to the Spurs, has said that he would like to play for the Dallas Mavericks. Bill, what's the latest on that situation, and how could that come to fruition?
Yeah, and I certainly don't have any new information on that, but this is one of the – can I just say I hate the buyout market with a burning passion. It seems like the most unfair, ridiculous system on the – yeah, I want to play with Luka Doncic too. The guy's absolutely amazing. I mean, this is one of those things where he's included as part of his contract, and it's not – and he was in Toronto for about, 30 seconds? That's how long he was there. And I suppose that it makes sense. You want to bring in guys who can handle the ball, who can contribute, even if it's off the bench with the second team. Do you want to take that usage rate down? I think a lot for Luka if you can, and the 2 guys that come from Washington contribute to that. Well, and if he's saying that, it probably means he understands that there's going to be a buyout. He's going to be able to go wherever he wants, and this is what guys do. I get it, signaling where he wants to be. That's where he'll probably end up. It's that player power again. I know that wasn't your question. I'm so put out by the buyout market. Yeah. It's like free agency part 2.
No, I agree, but you also got to think about, too, when you got a guy like Goran Dragic. I think he's a veteran guy that understands where to be out on the floor. He's tough-minded, plays defense. He gives his body up each and every night out on the floor. Him going to Dallas knowing that Jalen Brunson is having a really good year, a guy that's on my top of the list for most improved player, I don't like the move for Dallas, but anytime you buy out someone, they already having conversations already, knowing to where they're going to go. So guys are not going to take a buyout unless they can either make that money up or they can go somewhere where they know that they're welcome and that they want to be.
He's played with Luka Doncic, Avery, both Slovenian. Could this be a match for the Mavs?
It could be a match, and you can understand with what's happening in San Antonio, that's not really a fit there for Dragic. So again, for him to potentially be reunited with Luka Doncic, I think that's a real possibility. Even though Bill doesn't like the buyout market, it seemed like it's here to stay. But I think this is also an insurance policy, just in case something happens with Jalen Brunson in the offseason. He's having an outstanding year. You'll have 1 or 2 teams, especially teams that haven't made the playoffs, maybe a team like Detroit that is going to have some cap space potentially, that will have the ability to sign him. So again, you're trying to think about this year and winning this year, but you also want to have some potential insurance policies unless a guy like Jalen Brunson walks in free agency. But we got, Dragic's got to get bought out first. He's got to potentially sign with the Mavericks, and then we'll see what happens. But if he were to sign with the Mavericks, he definitely strengthens their backcourt position.
All right, Avery Johnson, Rip Hamilton, Bill Ryder, and Chris Hassel with you as we lead up to the NBA trade deadline, which is now just 8 minutes away, 3 p.m. Eastern time in the East. And some blockbuster trades have already been made on this day. At the bottom, you've got James Harden and Ben Simmons being swapped from Brooklyn to Philadelphia and vice versa. Harden joins Embiid with the Sixers. Ben Simmons joins Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn. Much more coverage as we lead up and then take you past the NBA trade deadline on this extremely busy day in the NBA.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.